Tell me what it is. Tell yourself what it is. What is this thing that you really want to do? And I'm going to tell you right now, go flip and do it. Do it. Hey, women who are creating wealth. It's great to see you today. We are going to do something a little different this week, and I hope you like it. I hope you think it's a treat. When I sold all of my residential property, my house hack, my Airbnbs, everything, I felt like it was a great time to sell my residential stuff, right? I got great offers. The market was really high because of COVID. So I said, that's it, I'm selling. But then I said, and everybody said to me, what are you going to do now? And I said, I don't know. So I ended up doing some research because I felt like even though I didn't think it was a good time to buy residential, it was a good time to buy commercial, right? I mean, offices were closing. People were not, everybody was working from home. Big office buildings were just like vacant, empty. This particular place that I ended up buying is a 6,000 square foot office condo. It's actually like 38% of the whole building. And it had been on the market for over a year. So I was like, zip in. I got a great price, great deal. And basically all it really needs is to be refreshed. So it's like from the 80s, everything's 1985 type of stuff. So I'm taking off wallpaper, even though I know wallpaper is in again. I don't like it. So I'm taking off wallpaper. I'm ripping up the kind of industrialish carpeting, and we're doing some really beautiful things here to jazz it up. So I'm going to give you a little tour. And the goal is that this would help you to find some inspiration to maybe do a project like this yourself. I mean, it has been so much fun, right? I've done tons of residential projects. I do love that whole thing of like taking something that looks like this and making it look like that. But it's just been a really much more involved and interesting process, including like, imagine I had to come up with a name and a logo and, marketing. I worked with a marketing coach and all that. It was just like, it's just been really cool, fun, really different, a kind of experience. So I want to share that with you. And I hope that, like I said, you get inspired and it's fun for you. This is basically what you see when you walk through the front door. And you can't really tell right now, but these walls are going to be Venetian plaster, which is just an absolutely beautiful. If you've never seen a Venetian plaster wall, you have to go find one somewhere, because the thing is, right, so when you walk in, you can see all the way through to the kitchen. That's what those two, like the door and the window. And the whole room all the way to the kitchen is going to be this gorgeous Venetian plaster. I mean, it feels like glass and it shimmers. It's got depth because after they get done with the plaster itself has marble dust in it. So they like burnish it and it brings up like a glassiness. And then when they're all done, like the next thing he's going to do there is put on it's got a mica in it. And he's going to put the logo right there. That was going to be a living wall. I'm not sure now if it still will be. You can tell I just sort of put signs. Signs of what was happening. The carpeting, okay, the whole place is carpeted and they wanted to charge me a fortune to get rid of the carpeting. And I was like, hey, this is perfectly good carpeting. So I put it on Marketplace and people have been coming and ripping up my carpeting for me. So like I was saying about the Venetian plaster, when he's done putting on this beautiful like mica and shimmery, shiny, beautiful thing, then the next step is wax. So they put on like this like blue soft wax, and it's just like, oh my God, it shimmers and like I said, it's just unbelievable. And I just the other day asked him to do a couple more rooms because we were just going to do that big front entryway. And now instead, we're also going to do the couple of the conference rooms. And actually some of the rooms where I'm yanking down wallpaper, the walls are just like, they have the design of the glue and everything. So I'm going to have him do those. And I had a feng shui a feng shui consultant to come and tell me where everything is, what every zone is. And so I'm painting the rooms and designing the place in those color schemes, right? So one of the conference rooms is in a gold and silver thing. So he's like, oh, I've got this great idea. I'm going to do this technique called Dune and you're going to love it. It's going to be so beautiful. So I said, Great, let's do it. So this is going to be one of the hot seat areas. You come off reception and then you walk into this room, and this is going to be the quiet room. So the space is called the Beehive, and this is the no buzz room. So people can come in here if they want to be quiet and they want to kind of, focus and concentrate. My friend is going on a cross-country trip and she didn't know what to do with all her plants. So they're now living at the Beehive. So, and that's, cool. I don't want to distribute them yet because I don't want to be having to move them 100 times. So at some point they're going to have a room in, on some window ledge. So if you leave the quiet space, this bigger space is going to be like the cafe. And so what we're going to do is along that whole wall, there'll be like a bar, like a work bar along that whole wall. And then coming out of each of the windows, the interior windows, there's going to be like a desk. So I didn't want to put another bar because then your computer would be to the window and there'll be glare and that's irritating. So we don't want that. And so that's going to be like the cafe room where if you wanted to like collaborate with somebody, you could just say, hey, could I just ask you a question or whatever? You know what I mean? People have an opportunity to talk to each other. This is the original kitchen. The floors actually were ripped up by the carpenters when they took this wall down. So when I took this space over, this was the kitchen. You've got this lovely tiny sink and a little tiny stove, and now it's got all kinds of plaster dust on it. But what we did instead was I took that wall down. You can see the strip where the wall used to be. And now there's 2 offices that are now going to be the kitchen. And that whole back wall, they're going to be cabinets, like normal cabinets and a full-size fridge and all that stuff all along the back wall. And then under the window, there'll be like another bar so people can like eat their lunch and look out the window and stuff like that. And then little table here, little table here. I actually took that door out and made it into a window so that I could put a bigger, eating space there. And it does have an actual door still so that, if you want to close the door and have a, conversation and get to know some people and socialize, right? Then you can do that. So that's, I'm psyched about that because that's one of the things that I think, the people aren't really encouraged to talk in these co-working spaces. So this is actually going to be the shower room. So in here, I want people to be able to ride their bike to work, to run, whatever, and if they want to just pop in afterwards and take a shower. And actually, there's going to be a washing machine right there because they're, instead of using hand towels, we're going to be using, instead of using paper towels, we're going to be using like face cloths because it's going to be a very green space. That's one of our differentiators. So as you can see, long hallways, there are 4 entrances, which is great for this space. So different people, like if you have a dedicated desk down this side of the building, you'll be able to use the dedicated desk space. These offices are really great. They're big and they're already set up for lots of people to be in them. So if you can tell, this is the Ethernet, we've got Ethernet connections and lots of plugs and stuff like that. So each office like that's going to have 5 desks, and I'll show you on the other side. You'll be able to see a little bit better. This right now is storage for the lady downstairs, but it's going to be a training room. And this is also where we're going to do like yoga classes. And whenever people come in, like professionals come in to teach us things like a LinkedIn expert or, an expert on TikTok or something, then we'll have that. This is kind of a cool little 3-room suite potentially. It could also be separate, but I'm leaving it open because I could put like a door. You could put a door here, 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 like just depending on how many people want to lease the space. And the bathrooms, we won't go in there. They're terrible. Okay, so then this is the other half of the building. That's another one of the entrance doors. And you can see a lot of the carpet's missing, thanks to lots of people who have come and taken it out for me. And then I'm going to actually bring you up to the other part of the space that's already getting finished. So this room actually is going to be the living room, which is going to be a hot seat area, but that'll have more comfy chairs, rather than like a bar area, you're going to be able to sit in a recliner or, maybe like just some other kind of comfy chair and put your feet up. Different kind of mood vibe, And then these other rooms are basically also big enough for 5 individuals. That room in the front, that's going to be the silver and gold room that I was talking about. There's my saw. I was cutting up the baseboard and there is the new floor. Ta-da! The guys were so fast. They did this whole thing. They were in and out of here before lunch. It was unbelievable. There are 2 offices ready to go. All they need is baseboard trim. And you can see with this desk, you can get a little bit more feel for the size. Oh yeah. So I got hung up doing the baseboard trim because of that return. But you can kind of tell now. So there'll be 5 people. There'll be 1 desk roughly where that one is. And then if you look at the other 2, there's 2 more outlets on that wall. So it'll be 1, 2, 3 desks on that wall and 2 desks on the other wall. And that's going to be 5 people very comfortably sharing an office. And there's lots of natural light. There's lots of, that's, the camera kind of takes it away. But so this is the other room, same thing. You could put 5 desks in here. So these 2 offices, when these 2 offices are rented, they're going to pay all my expenses for the building. What? Yeah, they're going to pay all my expenses for the building. So people can walk in, they're going to see everything really nice unless they turn left or right at the end of the hall. And they're going to say, oh, still work going on. So I'm giving everybody a 25% discount who comes while this stuff is going on, while they're using the old nasty bathrooms. Well, they're not nasty, they're just not nice. So this is actually one of the rugs that I pulled out myself because it had paint on it. So I advertised it separately from the other ones because I want the people to know there's a paint stain. And the last thing I'm going to show you on the tour, because we're almost, and actually straight ahead there, that's where the little phone booths are going to be where people can make their calls. This is my recording studio. This is actually where I'm sitting right now while I'm, kind of taking you on this tour. It's a total mess at the moment, but it's going to be really nice. And other people will be able to also rent it for their things. I'm going to have different art on all 4 walls so that, they'll be able to have a different feeling. Do you know what I mean? So that like everybody's going to have my personal podcast background. They're going to have their own things. There's going to be like this particular space, like I was talking about the Feng Shui space. This is in the journey area. Helpful people travel. So lots of maps. And I'm going to put up, I'm building a wooden map. I bought the map and you just assemble it. And I'm building that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put little pins in all the places where we have listeners. So every part of the world that has a listener, soon that'll be what's behind me. And you'll be able to see your country or your town, and maybe not your town, but your state. Anyway, I hope this has inspired you. I hope that you've got some ideas. I hope that you're thinking to yourself, geez, because I have to tell you a couple things. One is that I have never bought a piece of commercial real estate in my life. I've never actually even helped a client to buy a piece of commercial real estate. So this was totally out of my, wheelhouse, I guess. Knew nothing about it. I mean, of course, doing residential gives you some experience, but it's totally different. Like just as an example, okay, you saw the wall that I took down in the kitchen and you saw the little wall that I put up in the shower room. So the building inspector, because of that major construction that went on, he needed to have a plan that was stamped by an architect. So you can imagine how all the architects were lining up to do a job where you basically white out one wall and add in another one, right? It was hard for me to find an architect that was willing to do such a small job. Luckily, I had actually the people who I sold my other house to had an architect that I could use. Thank you very much. But that's actually another thing because I'm in a completely new area here. I'm an hour from where I used to work and live and be. So I don't know any carpenters here. I don't know any contractors, nobody. I have nobody I can really call on as my little favors, And so that's been interesting. I've had to find a whole new group, a whole new support structure for all of my project pieces. And that's been fun, interviewing the carpenters and stuff like that. And you can imagine, because right here, I'm starting a whole new business here. And it's, again, I know nothing about co-working space. I know nothing about renting offices, but you just learn as you go, right? You just jump and grow wings. That's what we're doing here. So I had to create a logo. I had to come up with a name for the business. And then I had to come up with a logo. And then I had to, then I hired a marketing consultant and we worked on the marketing piece together. And it's just been so joyful and fun and happy doing all these new things that I've never done before. That again, did I know what I'm doing? No, I didn't. But that's what I want to say to you because you can do this too. Not that you want to create a co-working space, but if there's some and preferably real estate related thing, but if there's anything in your life that you've been wanting to do and you thought, oh, I can't do that. I don't know anything about it. But actually, I do want to tell you one thing, because every project that I've done in my entire life, most people, and certainly my family, were really concerned and really nervous and really oh my God, what about this? What about that? What if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? And this is the first project that I have ever done where everybody has said, oh, that's a great idea. I'm a little nervous about that, actually. I hope they're not like putting the hex on me because that has never happened before. And even like I meet total strangers or like, I go to a Rotary meeting and talking to people for the first time. I'm like, oh, we really need that. That's a great idea. Thank you. Like the universe is giving me all this affirmation, which is so different. And I'm reveling in it and having a really good time. So what have you been wanting to do? What have you told yourself? What have other people told you? Oh, it can never work. It's a terrible idea. Blah, 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 blah. You'll lose your shirt. Tell me what it is. Tell yourself what it is. What is this thing that you really want to do? And I'm going to tell you right now, go flip and do it. Do it. If there's anything I can do to encourage you, if there's any, if I can coach you, if I can help you with your real estate transaction, if I can just talk to you on the phone and give you some support and some guidance, because you just start where you stand and fly from here. That's my advice to you. I have taken on this project that I don't know anything about, and you're going to get to see soon what it looks like when it's done. But for now, just to hopefully grab some of the excitement and the inspiration. And I can tell you, this has been energizing. It's been scary and exciting and fun. And I can feel the growth happening in my life. And I love it. And I love it. So just please take this as inspiration and do something that you've been wanting to do. So if you're thinking that you might want to go the commercial route and invest in some commercial property, let's just talk through a few major differences. So there are 5 major differences between, well, actually there are probably a million major differences, but there's 5 that we're going to focus on today. One is that normally when you're investing commercial real estate, you're going to have to put down a higher down payment. So sometimes with residential, you can get away with maybe 10%. Normally with commercial, it's going to be 20 to 30% minimum for your down payment. Ordinarily, with your commercial property, you're going to have less involvement. So in general, residential people are much more likely to pick up the phone and call you when there's a problem, whereas your commercial clients, normally that's not going to happen. And we'll talk about why that is as we get further down the list. So in general, commercial is giving higher returns. Now that is just so incredibly dependent on location and what class it's in and all that other stuff. But like in a big, gigantic general sense, the average return on investment or the average return for commercial property is about 12.7%, which is higher than the normal residential rate. Another way is the way you value real estate when you're looking at commercial real estate versus residential. A lot of the value of a residential property has to do with its location, right? You hear that all the time. Location, location, location. If it's the right property for that location, residential is going to be more expensive. But for commercial, part of the magic of commercial is that a lot of the valuation for it is the cash flow, right? It doesn't matter where it is as long as it's making money. So if you can go in there and change the use or change something about the mix, fix it up, raise the rates, get everybody paying more, then without touching anything else, you can immediately raise the value of your property. Okay, you don't have to pick it up and move it to a better location. Basically, what you're doing is maybe you're changing the tenant mix. Maybe you're just making things more attractive. Maybe you're able to secure more parking. Something that you did to the property made the tenants pay more rent. And that by the tenants paying more rent, you're immediately going to see a higher valuation of the property. So doing a commercial flip can actually be a lot easier and kind of fun compared to doing a residential flip. And like we talked about earlier, there are some really great opportunities for commercial property, but you got to think out of the box. And the final major difference between commercial and residential is the type of lease that you have. So normally you have a residential lease and it's, a year, maybe 2 years, and you're doing everything, right? You are in charge of fixing anything that breaks. With a commercial lease, most commercial leases are what's called triple net lease. So a triple net lease means that the person who's doing the leasing, the person who's actually going to be occupying that commercial property is going to be paying the taxes. So they're going to pay their own real estate taxes. They're going to pay their own insurance. And they're normally going to have to pay for their own maintenance. So that's a triple net lease. And normally that means that you just pay your loan and you let your tenant take care of everything else. So something breaks, they're going to have to fix it. They're going to do usually groundskeeping, all that kind of stuff that you normally would be responsible for as a residential landlord. Now that's all going to fall onto your commercial tenant. So those are some really good things about why commercial is so cool. And like I said, although it's changing in some parts of the country, in general, it is a more favorable time in many places to buy a commercial space than it is to buy a residential space. So like in my space where it was just a big, gigantic office space, it was a 6,000 square foot office building that they were trying to sell or rent to one person, right? So that's one big company that's going to have to occupy all 29 offices, all 6,000 square feet. Well, by reimagining that space as a shared space, and that's another thing you can do. Like this is going to be like almost like a work bar, WeWork type of model. But there are other things that are called like an entrepreneurial like incubator, right? So people who are just like small, they each get their own little office. This model that I have is even more granular than that. So it's not a whole bunch of little companies having their own office in a bigger office space where they don't have to worry about their own electricity or their own whatever. It's even bigger than that because here you can rent just a chair, basically. You can rent just an office room. You can rent just this recording studio that I'm in right now. So that's even a layer more granular. And because it is that, and there's more, I'm putting more into the property for the people. So I'm buying their desks and I'm paying for their internet and all the insurance. So somebody can literally just come here and sit down, use the printer, use the Wi-Fi, and not have to do anything themselves. And because of that, they're paying a premium. So an office that, one of these offices that I could normally get maybe $500-$600 a month for, if I had one tenant, that same office is going to be making about $1,500 to $2,000 a month because they're going to be 5 people sharing that office. And they're going to be all from different companies. So each desk is going to pay $300 or $400 a month to rent the desk that I've provided and the chair that I provided and all, like they need a lamp or whatever. That's all going to be included in even their little file cabinet. So they're paying basically a premium, but it's better for them because they don't have to rent a whole office suite just to put their one little desk. So it saves them money and it makes me more money. So in general, just like anywhere, the more you do for your clients, the more money you get. What is available in your area for a commercial space that you could potentially reimagine as a space that could make more money? Let's say there's one big place that used to be a restaurant and maybe you could turn it into 2 restaurants. Maybe you could turn it into a restaurant and a bakery, or maybe, like what can you do to like sort of really think? Sometimes you can buy a residential space and you can take the bottom floor, like if it's at the street level, and you can make that into a commercial space. That gives you a mixed use of tenants. So some commercial and some residential, which can be really powerful, especially as markets are changing. So don't look at what something is today. Imagine what it could be. And you may very well benefit from that financially because you saw something that someone else wasn't able to see. Even sometimes a large industrial space, right? Imagine like, okay, there's just this big, ugly warehouse building. I've seen some amazing like photography studios and hair salons and, things like that are in these big industrial buildings because same thing. Instead of like, oh, there's this gigantic space, it's just a big industrial space. But if you could just partition it up a little bit and help your clients, but that, of course, depends upon finding the right mix of tenants. So make sure that if you're changing the use, that usually means that you're going to be vacant for a while you transition from one use to another. So make sure that you have that buffer. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to tell you about commercial, except that, I don't have a ton of experience. I'm doing my very first commercial project, but it's fun and it's exciting. Oh, so some things that are going to be different if you've done a residential project are things like the permitting process and what you're able to do. Like in a lot of towns, even if you want to put up a sign, you're going to have to go before some kind of a planning board or zoning board and request permission for that sign. You're going to have to request permission for a lot of things that you might not have to worry about if you were just doing residential. So before you launch into this space and buy something as you've reimagined it, just make sure that the zoning and the town or city is going to allow you to do what you want to do. When I first started looking at this space, I looked up the zoning for this building, and it basically said it was industrial and that offices were not allowed here. So I thought, well, that's really bad. Only certain types of offices like R&D sort of buildings and things like that, but you couldn't do just like a typical office. So I immediately had to reach out to the town and see what the story was. I said, I'm buying this place and I'm thinking that I'm going to put offices here. And so I was able to connect with the planning commission, and they told me that this particular building had been grandfathered and that office space was definitely allowed here. So I saved that email. But yeah, definitely do your due diligence and make sure that what you think, don't just like, I'm just going to go do this thing and it's going to be fantastic. Even putting a commercial space on the ground floor of your residential space, that's not always allowed. So ordinarily, if you're in a place where you'd even consider that, it's probably because there's other commercial spaces nearby, which most likely means that it's zoned for that. But, if you're thinking that you could create an art gallery or you could create a place where people can come to do retreats or seminars or things like that. I mean, one thing I discovered, I did not know this ahead of time, but one thing I discovered when I bought this place is that there are actually grants available for people who are creating co-working spaces. Those sorts of things, like what is the government inducing people to do? What is the local government, like in your town or area where you're considering? What kinds of grants are they giving out? Because that's an excellent way to discover what there is a need for in that community. Commercial also ordinarily has a longer lease. So your average commercial tenant is going to have a 5 to 10 year lease. So that's way different than residential situation. So that can be good and bad, right? It can be that you're stuck with this low rent for, 8 more years, or it can be that, you've got guaranteed income as long as this company doesn't go out of business. So 2 factors to the longer lease scenario. So get excited, get some ideas rolling, and see what you can reimagine. And then let me know, right? Go in the chat and let me know.